The council chamber was silent. Too silent. Velith stood at the center of the massive room, her 3 eyes dim with worry. Around her, representatives from 40 different species waited for news. None of them wanted to hear what she was about to say. "The Taurian colony on Elisara is under attack," Velith announced. Her voice echoed through the chamber. "The Krell have surrounded their capital city. They have 5 days, maybe less." A wave of concerned sounds filled the room. The Taurians were peaceful. Everyone knew this. They made beautiful art and studied the stars. They had no weapons, no armies, nothing to defend themselves with. Their bodies were fragile, made of silicon that could shatter like glass. "How many Taurians are trapped?" someone asked from the back. 50,000 in the main city, mostly civilians, children, elders, artists. Velith's voice cracked slightly. "The Krell are demanding surrender. If they refuse, the Krell will kill them all." "What about our military forces?" another voice called out. Velith shook her head slowly. 3 weeks away, minimum. The Taurians don't have 3 weeks. They have 5 days. The chamber erupted in discussion. Everyone was talking at once. Some species suggested negotiating with the Krell. Others said it was impossible to reach Elisara in time. A few simply looked away, unwilling to face the terrible truth. The Taurians were going to die, and nobody could stop it. Near the back of the chamber, in the section reserved for newer coalition members, Taeho sat quietly. He was human. One of only 3 humans at the entire council meeting. His face was weathered and lined with scars from old battles. Back on Earth, he had been a commander. Now he was a diplomat. But old instincts died hard. He listened as species after species explained why they couldn't help. The atmosphere on Elisara was too rich in oxygen for most coalition species. The Krell were too dangerous. The mission was suicide. On and on, excuse after excuse. Taeho stood up. His chair scraped against the floor, loud in the momentary quiet. "Earth will go," he said simply. Every head in the chamber turned toward him. Velith's 3 eyes widened in surprise. "Ambassador Taeho," she said carefully, "perhaps you don't understand the situation. This would be a combat mission. Against the Krell. They are experienced warriors." "I understand perfectly," Taeho replied. His voice was calm and steady. "You need someone to rescue 50,000 people from a planet that most species can't breathe on. You need them rescued in less than 5 days. You need someone willing to fight the Krell." He paused. "Earth can do all of those things." A ripple of whispers spread through the chamber. Humans, the Deathworlders, the species from that horrible planet with crushing gravity, poisonous oxygen levels, and weather that could kill most beings. They were strong, yes, but also wild, unpredictable, dangerous. "The human military is untested in coalition conflicts," another council member objected. Taeho smiled, but there was no humor in it. "Our military has been testing itself for thousands of years, against each other, against our planet, against everything that tried to kill us. We know how to fight. More importantly, we know how to win when the odds are impossible." Velith looked at him for a long moment. Finally, she nodded. "Very well. Earth has permission to mount a rescue operation. May your ancestors watch over you, Ambassador." "They will," Taeho said. He was already walking toward the exit, pulling out his communication device. He had work to do. The message reached Earth 6 hours later. In Seoul, at the Rapid Response Command Center, alarms began to sound. Commander Haewon was reviewing training reports when her assistant burst into her office. "Commander, we have a Priority 1 alert from Ambassador Taeho." Haewon looked up sharply. Priority 1 meant lives were at stake. She opened the message and read quickly. Her expression didn't change, but her eyes hardened. "Activate Protocol Shepard," she ordered. "I want a full strike team ready in 4 hours." 4 hours? Her assistant repeated. Commander, the standard prep time is 4 hours, HFY repeated firmly. Those people don't have time for standard procedures. She stood and walked to the window, looking out over the sprawling city below. Seoul had survived wars, disasters, and every challenge thrown at it. Humanity had survived on a planet that tried to kill them every single day. Now someone needed that strength, that stubborn refusal to give up. She made her calls. One by one, the team assembled. Dae-sung was first. He was a pilot, one of the best Earth had. He could fly through a hurricane and make it look easy. He arrived at the command center within an hour, his flight suit already on. Yuna came next. She was a combat medic, small and quiet. But her hands had saved more lives than anyone could count. She also knew alien biology better than most scientists. If the Torians were injured, she would know how to help them. Hyunwoo arrived carrying his gear, which included weapons that looked too heavy for one person to lift. He was massive, even for a human, with arms like tree trunks. He'd been in more combat situations than the rest of the team combined. Ji-woo was the tech specialist, young, brilliant, and capable of hacking any system in the known galaxy. If it had circuits, Ji-woo could control it. Finally, Woo-jin showed up. He was the youngest of them all, barely 20 years old, but he had a talent for explosives that bordered on artistic. He could blow up a building or disarm a bomb with equal skill. HFY gathered them in the briefing room. She pulled up a hologram of Elisera, showing them the planet, the city, the Krell positions. 50,000 civilians, 5 days or less. 3 Krell warships in orbit. 2,000 raiders on the ground. She looked at each of them in turn. This is a volunteer mission. The council thinks it's suicide. Anyone want to walk away? Nobody moved. Hyunwoo grinned. 50,000 civilians need help. I'm in. Sounds like our kind of impossible, Dae-sung added. Someone has to do it, Yuna said quietly. Might as well be us. Ji-woo nodded. I've already started analyzing their communication systems. We can use them against them. Woo-jin, the youngest, looked nervous but determined. I'm ready, Commander. HFY felt a surge of pride. This was why she loved her species. Humans didn't run from impossible odds. They ran toward them. Good. We leave in 2 hours. Pack heavy. We're going to war. She paused, then added, and we're bringing every single one of those people home. The ship Indomitable waited on the launch pad, being loaded with weapons, medical supplies, and enough ammunition for a small army. It wasn't the biggest ship or the fanciest, but it was tough, like the people who would fly it. As the team boarded, HFY took one last look at Earth. Somewhere up there, in the vast darkness of space, people were dying. People who had done nothing wrong except ask for help. Let's show the galaxy what humans do, she said to her team. We answer the call. The Indomitable's engines roared to life. Within minutes, they were gone, racing toward Elisara at faster-than-light speed. Behind them, Earth continued to spin, quiet and blue. But its children were going to war, and the galaxy was about to learn what happened when you threatened someone under humanity's protection. The journey through faster-than-light space took 3 days. Inside the Indomitable, the team prepared. They studied everything they could about the Torians. They learned that Torians were made of living crystal, that they needed very little food, that they had never invented a single weapon in their entire history. War was a concept they barely understood. Yuna watched videos of Torian children playing in crystal gardens. They moved slowly, carefully, their bodies catching and reflecting light like living rainbows. They're so fragile, she whispered. One hard impact could shatter them. That's why the Krell picked them, Hyunwoo said grimly. He was cleaning his weapons, as he had been for the past hour. Easy targets. Can't fight back. They can fight back now, Heywan said from the doorway. They have us. Jiwoo looked up from his computer screens. I've been analyzing Krell tactics. They're predictable, brutal, but predictable. They rely on overwhelming force and fear. They've never fought anyone who fights back effectively. Then they're in for a surprise, Dae-sung said. He was running system checks on the ship. We're dropping out of FTL in 10 minutes. Everyone gear up. The team moved with practiced efficiency. Body armor locked into place. Weapons were checked and rechecked. Woo Jin carefully packed his explosives, each charge precisely measured. They had trained for missions like this, though none of them had ever done an alien rescue before. The Indomitable shuddered as it dropped back into normal space. Immediately, alarms started blaring. Multiple hostile contacts, Dae-sung announced, his voice tight. 3 Krell warships in orbit. They're bombarding the surface. On the main screen, they could see Elisera. It was a beautiful planet, covered in crystalline forests that sparkled in the sunlight. But now those forests were burning. Orbital strikes were hammering the surface, leaving craters where cities had once stood. The capital city, Crystal Spring, is still standing, Jiwoo reported. But barely. I'm detecting massive Krell troop concentrations surrounding it. How many? Heywan asked. Approximately 2,000 raiders on the ground. Maybe more. The team was quiet for a moment. 2,000 against 6. Those were terrible odds by anyone's standard. Well, Woo Jin said, trying to sound confident, at least they outnumber us. Wouldn't be fair otherwise. Hyun-woo laughed. It was a deep, booming sound. Kids got the right attitude. Dae-sung, get us down there, Heywan ordered. Use the magnetic field to hide our approach. We can't let those warships target us. On it, Commander. What followed was the most intense flying any of them had experienced. Dae-sung pushed the Indomitable into a steep dive, skimming the edge of space and atmosphere. The ship shook violently. Metal groaned, but Dae-sung's hands were steady on the controls, making constant tiny adjustments. The Krell warships never saw them. The Indomitable dropped through the clouds like a stone, engines screaming. They leveled out just above the crystal forests, racing toward Crystal Spring at maximum speed. Landing zone ahead, Dae-sung called out. It's going to be rough. Rough is fine, Heywan replied. Dead is not. Get us down. The Indomitable touched down in a clearing just outside the city. The landing gear screamed in protest, but held. Before the engines had even fully powered down, the rear hatch was opening. Heywan led the way out. The first thing she noticed was the gravity. It felt almost exactly like Earth's. The second thing was the air, rich, thick with oxygen. Perfect. The third thing was the destruction. Crystal Spring had been beautiful once. Now half of it was rubble. Crystalline buildings lay shattered. The ground was scorched black from orbital strikes. And everywhere, there were Krell soldiers. Refuge Tower is 2 kilometers north, Jiwoo said, checking his scanner. That's where the Taurians are hiding. Krell have it surrounded. Through the smoke and dust, they could see the tower. It was tall and elegant, made of some kind of crystal that still glowed faintly even through the haze. Around it, like a living wall, were the Krell. The Krell were reptilian, covered in thick scales and natural armor. They stood nearly 3 meters tall with powerful limbs and sharp claws. They carried weapons that looked primitive but deadly. They were built for war. They've spotted us, Hyun-woo announced. A group of Krell raiders, maybe 50 of them, had turned toward the human position. They were pointing and making harsh sounds that might have been laughter. To them, 6 humans probably looked like a joke. Easy prey. The Krell charged. Weapons free, Heywan said calmly. What happened next would later be analyzed by military historians across the galaxy. The Krell expected the humans to run or hide. Instead, the humans stood their ground. Hyun-woo opened fire first. His heavy plasma cannon roared, each shot hitting with the force of a small explosion. Krell raiders were thrown backward, their armor cracking. Those were the lucky ones. Haywan's rifle spat fire in controlled bursts. Each shot found a target. Headshots mostly, clean and efficient. She had been a sniper in Earth's wars, and those skills hadn't faded. Daesung and Jiwoo provided covering fire, their weapons creating a wall of death that nothing could cross. Yuna, despite being a medic, was no slouch with a rifle either. Her shots were careful but deadly. Wu Jin threw something that looked like a small sphere. It landed among a group of Krell and exploded, sending them flying in all directions. The engagement lasted 4 minutes. When it was over, 50 Krell lay dead or dying. Not a single human had fallen. Hyunwoo had a scratch on his armor where a Krell blade had gotten lucky. That was it. Inside the refuge tower, Taurians watched through their surveillance systems in complete shock. They had seen coalition soldiers before. Those soldiers were careful, tactical, always retreating when outnumbered. These humans were different. They didn't retreat. They didn't hesitate. They just fought with a cold, terrifying efficiency. Elder Melora, the leader of the trapped Taurians, opened a communication channel with trembling hands. "Human vessel," she said, her voice like wind chimes, "you should not have come. This is a death sentence." Haywan's response came immediately, her voice steady and sure. "For them, maybe, not for us." On the Krell command ship in orbit, Commander Vorgath watched footage of the engagement. He replayed it 3 times, unable to believe what he was seeing. His warriors, his elite raiders, cut down in minutes by 6 primitives. "What are these creatures?" his second-in-command asked nervously. Vorgath's eyes narrowed. "They are from Earth, a death world. I have heard rumors, but—" He trailed off, watching again as a human female dropped 5 of his warriors with 5 shots, each one perfectly placed. "Should we withdraw?" the second-in-command suggested quietly. "Withdraw?" Vorgath roared. "From 6 primitives? Never! Send every warrior from the perimeter, all of them. I want these humans crushed. I want their bodies dragged through the streets as a warning." It was a mistake, a fatal one. But Vorgath didn't know that yet. Down on the surface, Haywan gathered her team. They had bought themselves a few minutes, maybe an hour. The Krell would regroup. They would come again, with more numbers, more anger. "We're outnumbered 300 to 1, she said, looking at each member of her team. "Standard tactics say we should dig in and defend, but we're not doing that." "What's the plan, Commander?" Daesung asked. Haywan smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. "We're going on offense. We're going to teach these Krell bastards why you don't mess with humans. And more importantly, we're going to get every single Taurian off this rock alive." The team checked their weapons. Night was falling over Crystal Spring. The Krell thought darkness was their advantage. They had fought in darkness for centuries, their eyes perfectly adapted. But they had never fought humans in the dark. They had never faced a species that spent thousands of years as both predator and prey, learning to hunt and hide in every condition their brutal planet could throw at them. The Krell were about to get an education in human warfare, and school was now in session. Elisara had 2 moons. They rose together as darkness fell over Crystal Spring, casting strange double shadows across the ruined city. The temperature dropped quickly, cold enough to make most species sluggish. The humans barely noticed. Haywan outlined her plan in the shadow of the refuge tower. It was risky, maybe crazy, but safe plans didn't work when you were outnumbered this badly. "We split into 3 teams, she explained, drawing in the dirt with a stick. "We hit them fast, hit them hard, and make them chase us. While they're scattered and confused, Daesung brings the ship in and starts evacuating the Taurians. They'll have every warrior hunting us," Yuna pointed out. "That's the idea," Haywan said. "Better chasing us than surrounding this tower. Jiwoo, can you hack their communications?" Jiwoo was already working, his fingers flying over his portable console. "Almost in. Their encryption is—" Actually, it's pretty terrible. Got it. I can feed them false information, reroute their squads, basically make them see whatever we want. Good. Wu Jin, I need you to rig explosives. Make it look like we have 100 soldiers, not 6. The young man grinned. I can do that. I brought enough charges to level half the city if needed. Let's hope it doesn't come to that, HFY said. She looked at her team. They were tired already, but their eyes were sharp and focused. Team assignments. Hyunwoo, you're with me. We take the ammunition depot. Dae-sung and Ji-woo, you handle the grounded transports. Yuna and Woo-jin, you clear the eastern sector. Questions? Nobody had questions. They knew what to do. They had trained for scenarios like this, even if the actual reality was more intense than any simulation. Inside the refuge tower, the Taurians watched in confusion as the humans split up. Elder Melora tried to contact them. Human commander, she said. There are 2,000 Krell warriors. 6 of you cannot possibly... Watch us, HFY replied, cutting the connection. There was no time for explanations, only action. The night raids began. HFY and Hyunwoo moved through the ruins like ghosts. Despite his size, Hyunwoo was surprisingly quiet when he needed to be. They navigated by moonlight and instinct, avoiding Krell patrols, getting closer to their target. The Krell ammunition depot was heavily guarded. 20 warriors stood watch, confident in their numbers. They didn't expect an attack. Why would they? They were winning. On my mark, HFY whispered. 3, 2, 1, mark! Hyunwoo stepped out from cover and opened fire. His heavy plasma cannon lit up the night like a small sun. The explosive rounds tore through Krell warriors and ammunition crates alike. The guards tried to return fire, but HFY was already moving, her rifle picking off targets with brutal precision. One Krell officer managed to sound an alarm before HFY's bullet found him. It didn't matter. The depot was already doomed. Fires had started among the ammunition stores. Secondary explosions began, each one bigger than the last. Time to go, HFY said calmly. They ran, the depot exploding behind them in a fireball that could be seen from orbit. Across the city, Dae-sung and Ji-woo reached the grounded Krell transports. These ships were the raiders way off the planet. Strand them here, and the Krell would have to make difficult choices about who got to escape. I'm in their computer systems, Ji-woo said, his fingers dancing over his console, locking down their engines, scrambling their navigation systems, and... There. I'm broadcasting a fake surrender message from the Taurians. The Krell will think the tower is opening its doors. Will they fall for it? Dae-sung asked. Probably not, but it'll confuse them long enough. Ji-woo hit a final key. Done. These ships aren't flying anywhere. They heard Krell voices shouting in the distance. Warriors were coming to investigate. Trap? Dae-sung suggested. Trap, Ji-woo agreed. They rigged the nearest transport with proximity mines from Woo-jin's supplies. Then they waited. When the first Krell warriors arrived, Dae-sung and Ji-woo opened fire from concealment. The Krell rushed toward the transport for cover. The mines detonated. 8 Krell died instantly. The survivors scattered in panic, exactly as planned. In the eastern sector, Yuna and Woo-jin were having their own success. The youngest team member had turned out to be brilliant at urban warfare. He used the ruined buildings like weapons, rigging them to collapse at the right moment, creating avalanches of crystal debris that buried Krell patrols. Yuna moved with quiet efficiency, her medical training making her aware of anatomy in ways that were useful in combat. She knew exactly where to shoot to drop an enemy instantly. It was disturbing how similar Krell anatomy was to some Earth reptiles. Hit them in the nerve clusters, and they went down fast. 3 blocks cleared, Woo-jin reported over the comm. No human casualties. Can't say the same for the Krell. Good. HFY's voice came back. Phase 2. Draw them away from the tower. Make noise. Make them angry. Make them chase you. That part was easy. The 6 humans became a nightmare for the Krell. They appeared from nowhere, struck hard, and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. They used every trick that centuries of human warfare had developed: ambushes, false retreats, traps within traps. The Krell were tough and experienced, but they had never faced anything like this. Most species in the galaxy fought in formations, with clear battle lines. Humans fought like shadows and smoke, impossible to pin down. Commander Vorgath, watching from orbit, was losing his mind with fury. His warriors were being picked apart. The ammunition depot was gone. The transports were destroyed, and he still couldn't find these 6 humans to crush them. "All units, converge on the human positions," he ordered. "I don't care about the tower anymore. I want those humans dead. All of them. Now." It was exactly what HFY wanted him to do. Dae Sung. "The Krell are pulling away from the tower," she reported. "Start the evacuation. You've got maybe 20 minutes before they realize what's happening." "Understood, Commander. Moving in now." The Indomitable lifted off from its hiding spot and flew low and fast toward the refuge tower. Dae Sung brought the ship down with incredible precision, settling it right next to the tower's main entrance. Inside the tower, the Taurians were terrified and amazed in equal measure. These strange humans had come from nowhere, fought an impossible battle, and now were offering escape. "Everyone move quickly but carefully," Yuna instructed over the comm link. She had memorized Taurian physiology. "Don't push, don't rush. Your bodies are fragile. We'll get everyone out, but you have to stay calm." The Taurians filed onto the ship in long, glittering lines. Elder Melora supervised, her crystalline body reflecting the emergency lights. She watched as human crew members, who moments ago had been warriors, now gently helped elderly Taurians and carried young ones who were too frightened to walk. One young Taurian asked a crew member, "Why are you helping us? We can give you nothing in return." The human, a woman named Sora who had stayed with the ship, smiled kindly. "We don't need anything in return. You needed help. That's enough." The evacuation continued. 5,000 Taurians aboard, 10,000, 20,000. The Indomitable's cargo holds were never designed for this many people, but they made it work. Taurians crowded together, scared but hopeful. Meanwhile, the 6 soldiers were running out of miracles. The Krell had finally caught on to the strategy. Warriors were flooding back toward the tower, realizing they had been tricked. "Hey, Juan, we've got a problem," Jiwoo reported. His voice was strained. "Orbital scans show all 3 Krell warships adjusting position. They're preparing to fire on the city." "How long?" HFY demanded. "Minutes, maybe less. They're going to glass the entire area. Kill everyone, Taurian and human alike." HFY did quick math in her head. The evacuation was only halfway done. 25,000 Taurians still in the tower. If those warships fired now, everyone would die. "How many Taurians are left to evacuate?" she asked Dae Sung. 25,000. I need at least 10 more minutes." 10 minutes they didn't have. "Team, fall back to the tower," HFY ordered. "We're going to buy Dae Sung his time." "How?" Hyunwoo asked. He was breathing hard, having just fought his way through a dozen Krell warriors. "The old-fashioned way," HFY said grimly. "We stand and fight. We hold this position no matter what. If they want this tower, they'll have to go through us." One by one, the team members acknowledged. They knew what this meant. 5 humans standing against hundreds of Krell warriors with orbital bombardment coming. The odds of survival were basically 0. But nobody complained. Nobody hesitated. This was what they had signed up for. This was what humans did. They reached the tower and took defensive positions at its base. Above them, the Krell warships powered up their weapons. Around them, hundreds of Krell warriors advanced, sensing victory. Inside the ship, Taurians continued to board, unaware of the sacrifice about to be made. HFY checked her ammunition. Not much left. She looked at her team. They were battered, exhausted, but still standing. "Well," she said, This should be interesting. The Krell came in waves. They had finally stopped being careful. They wanted blood, wanted revenge for their fallen warriors. 800 raiders advanced on the tower, their weapons ready, their voices raised in war cries that echoed through the ruined city. 5 humans stood at the base of the tower. Behind them, the last of the Taurians were boarding the Indomitable. They could hear the frightened voices, the sound of thousands of fragile beings climbing to safety. Every second mattered. "Remember basic training?" Hyunwoo said, checking his ammunition. He was down to his last few charges. "The instructor said we'd never face worse odds than the final simulation." Woo Jin laughed, though it sounded shaky. "Those simulations only went to 100 to 1. We're 8 times that." "Guess we're overachievers," Yuna said. She had set up a small medical station behind their defensive line. If any of them got hurt and survived, she would be ready. Jiwoo was monitoring multiple screens at once. "Krell warships are charging weapons. 60 seconds to orbital strike." "Then we hold for 60 seconds, Haewon said simply. She raised her rifle, sighting on the advancing Krell. "Pick your targets. Make every shot count. And remember, we're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for everyone behind us who can't fight." The first wave hit like a hammer. Krell warriors charged with shocking speed, their clawed feet tearing up the ground. They fired as they ran, wild shots that mostly missed but occasionally struck sparks off the crystal buildings around the humans. The humans fired back with surgical precision. Unlike the Krell, they didn't waste ammunition. Every shot had a purpose. Haewon dropped 3 warriors with 3 bullets. Hyunwoo's heavy weapon roared, each explosive round taking out multiple targets. Even young Woo Jin was deadly accurate, his rifle barking in controlled bursts. But there were too many. For every Krell that fell, 2 more appeared. They kept coming, climbing over their own dead, driven by rage and the promise of victory. "Incoming!" Jiwoo shouted. The orbital strike hit. 3 massive energy beams lanced down from space, vaporizing everything they touched. The humans scattered, using the tower's structural supports as cover. The ground shook violently. Buildings collapsed. Crystal shards flew through the air like deadly rain. When the dust cleared, a massive crater had appeared 50 meters from their position. The heat was intense enough to melt stone, but the humans were still standing, still fighting. "That all you got?" Hyunwoo roared at the sky. The Krell used the chaos to advance. They were within throwing distance now. Some began hurling explosive charges. The humans dove for cover as the charges detonated, showering them with debris. Yuna took shrapnel in her leg. She grunted in pain but kept firing. Blood ran down her armor, but her hands stayed steady. "Yuna's hit," Jiwoo reported. "I'm fine," Yuna said through gritted teeth. "Keep fighting." Behind them, Dae-sung's voice came over the comm. "Last group of Taurians is boarding now. 2 more minutes." 2 minutes. It might as well have been 2 hours. The Krell sensed the end was near. They pressed harder, taking losses they wouldn't normally accept, driven by the need to win. Woo Jin's rifle clicked empty. He drew his sidearm and kept shooting. Hyunwoo's heavy weapon finally ran dry. He dropped it and pulled out a combat knife that looked more like a sword. When the Krell got close enough, he showed them why humans were apex predators on their world. Haewon's rifle was almost out of ammunition. She could feel her body protesting, muscles screaming, but she pushed the pain aside. Not yet. Not while Taurians still needed time. "Commander, the warships are charging again," Jiwoo said. "Another strike in 30 seconds. "Dae-sung," Haewon called. 20 seconds. That's all I need. 20 seconds. Above them, the Krell warships prepared to fire again. This time, the beams would be aimed directly at the tower. Nothing would survive. But then something impossible happened. New signatures appeared on Jiwoo's scanner, multiple ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. "We've got contacts," Jiwoo said. his voice filled with disbelief. "Lots of contacts. It's the Coalition fleet. They're here. They're early." But it wasn't just the Coalition fleet. Leading the formation was Ambassador Tae-ho aboard the flagship Harmony's Shield. And behind the Coalition ships came 12 vessels flying Earth's colors. The Second Fleet had arrived, uninvited and unstoppable. On the ground, the humans didn't know this yet. They were too busy fighting. But in orbit, the situation changed completely. The Krell warships detected the new arrivals and hesitated. 3 warships against an entire fleet was suicide. But before they could decide whether to run or fight, the Earth ships opened fire. What followed wasn't really a battle. It was a demonstration. The Coalition followed rules of engagement, careful protocols. Earth's military didn't have those restrictions yet. They had been told to help, and they helped with overwhelming force. The Krell warships' shields collapsed under the barrage. Their engines were disabled. Their weapon systems went offline. In less than 3 minutes, all 3 warships were drifting hulks, captured but not destroyed, because humans had also learned mercy, though they learned it the hard way. On the surface, the Krell raiders suddenly found themselves without orbital support. Their commanders were screaming confused orders. Some wanted to keep fighting, others wanted to retreat. "Dae-sung, status?" Hae-won demanded. "Last Torian is aboard, sealing the doors now. We're clear." "Then get them out of here." The Indomitable's engines roared to life. The ship lifted off with 50,000 Torians packed inside, far more than it was designed to carry. But Dae-sung's skill and the ship's sturdy construction made it work. They climbed toward orbit, leaving the battle behind. Except the 5 soldiers on the ground weren't leaving. They were surrounded, wounded, and nearly out of ammunition. The Krell, even without orbital support, still numbered in the hundreds. Commander Vorgath, watching his perfect raid collapse, made one final decision. "Kill those humans! Kill them all! I don't care if we lose every warrior! I want them dead!" The Krell charged one last time. This was it, the final push. The humans braced themselves. Then transport ships appeared overhead, flying Coalition colors and Earth markings. They dropped into the battle zone, their weapons firing, cutting down Krell warriors by the dozens. Hatches opened and soldiers poured out. Human soldiers from the Second Fleet, Coalition peacekeepers, even a few volunteers from species that had heard about the rescue mission. "Need a lift?" a voice called over the comm. It was Captain Minho from the Second Fleet, grinning as he offered covering fire. Hae-won almost laughed. "Took you long enough." "We got here as fast as we could. Let's get you 5 out of there." The extraction was quick and professional. The 5 soldiers, battered and bloody, were pulled into a transport ship. Yuna was already being treated by the ship's medic. Hyun-woo was still carrying his knife, refusing to let it go. Woo-jin looked like he might pass out from exhaustion, but was grinning like a fool. As they lifted off, they could see more ships landing. The Coalition was establishing control. The Krell raiders were either surrendering or running. The battle for Elisara was over. Inside the transport, Hae-won finally let herself relax. Every muscle in her body ached. Her face was burned from the orbital strike's heat. But they had done it. Every single Torian had been saved. "Commander," Jiwoo said quietly, "we just received a message from the Council. They want to see you, all of us." "Can it wait?" Hyun-woo grumbled. "I need about 3 days of sleep." "I don't think so. The whole galaxy is watching." Hae-won nodded slowly. They had set out to rescue 50,000 civilians. Instead, they had demonstrated something the galaxy had never really seen before. They had shown what humans could do when someone needed help. The transport docked with the Harmony's shield. Ambassador Tae-ho was waiting for them, along with dozens of other officials. He looked at the 5 soldiers, at their wounds and exhausted faces, and smiled. "You did it," he said simply. "We did what needed doing," Hae-won replied. The Council wants to give you medals, all of you, the Star of Unity, the highest honor they have." "That's nice," Una said, wincing as medics worked on her leg. "But what about the Taurians? Are they safe?" "All 50,000. Already being transferred to proper ships with medical facilities. Because of you, not a single one died." Tejo paused. "The galaxy is calling you heroes." "We're just soldiers," Haiwan said. "We answered a call for help, that's all." But it wasn't all. The galaxy knew it. Humanity had announced itself in the loudest way possible. They had taken an impossible mission and made it look routine. They had stood against odds that would have broken anyone else. And most importantly, they had proven something simple but powerful. When someone needs help, humans answer. Every time. No matter the cost. The council chamber on Velcor Prime was more crowded than it had been in decades. Every species wanted to see what would happen next. Word had spread across the galaxy in hours. Humans, the Deathworlders everyone feared and ignored, had rescued 50,000 Taurians from certain death. 6 soldiers against 2,000 raiders. Impossible odds made possible. Ambassador Tejo stood before the council with his 5 soldiers beside him. They had been cleaned up, their wounds treated, their armor repaired. But everyone could still see the exhaustion in their faces, the burn marks on Haiwan's skin, the way Una still limped slightly despite the medical attention. Velith, the council leader, spoke first. Her 3 eyes were bright with emotion. "Commander Haiwan, Lieutenant Dae Sung, Sergeant Una, Corporal Hyun Woo, Specialist Ji Woo, and Private Woo Jin. The Coalition owes you a debt beyond measure. You saved 50,000 lives when we believed salvation was impossible." She held up 6 crystalline medals, each one crafted by the Taurians themselves. "These are the Stars of Unity, our highest honor. They are given only to those who embody the ideals of the Coalition. You have earned them." One by one, the soldiers stepped forward to receive their medals. When it was Wu Jin's turn, the young man looked overwhelmed. Velith placed the medal around his neck gently. "You are very young," she observed. "You must have been terrified." "Yes, ma'am," Wu Jin admitted. "But someone needed help. Being scared doesn't matter when that's true." The chamber fell silent. It was such a simple statement, but it cut to the heart of everything that had happened. After the ceremony, the real discussion began. The council had called this emergency session not just to give medals, but to address what they were calling the human question. A representative from the Axion Collective stood up. The Axions were an old species, cautious and traditional. "We must discuss the implications of what happened. The humans demonstrated military capability that frankly frightens many of us. 6 individuals defeated a force 300 times their size. What would a human army be capable of?" Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Fear was a powerful emotion, even among civilized species. Tejo stepped forward. His voice was calm but firm. "You're right to be concerned about military power, but you're asking the wrong question. You shouldn't ask what humans are capable of. You should ask what we choose to do with that capability." "And what do you choose?" Velith asked. Tejo looked at his soldiers, then back at the council. "We choose to help. You called it a suicide mission. We called it Tuesday. The difference between us and many species here isn't biology. It's that we come from a world that tried to kill us every single day. We learned to survive when survival seemed impossible. We learned to fight when fighting was the only option. But we also learned something else. We learned that strength without compassion is just brutality." He paused, letting his words sink in. "You asked why humans answered when everyone else wouldn't. Because someone had to. Because it was right. And because where we're from, the measure of civilization isn't how you treat those who can help you. It's how you treat those who can't." Another council member stood up, this one from the Vren Unity. "Beautiful words, Ambassador, but words are cheap. Actions matter. What guarantee do we have that humans won't use this power for conquest? Before Tejo could respond, a new voice filled the chamber. It was Elder Melora, broadcasting from a medical ship where the Taurians were recovering. Her crystalline form appeared on the main screen. "I can answer that," she said. Her voice was stronger now, no longer trembling with fear. "I watched these humans fight. I saw them kill when they had to. But I also saw them pause their own evacuation to help a Taurian child who was too frightened to move. I saw their medic treat wounded Taurians while still bleeding from her own injuries. I saw their youngest member, barely more than a child himself, carry elderly Taurians onto their ship with infinite gentleness." She paused, her crystalline eyes reflecting light in patterns that suggested emotion. "You ask for guarantees about human behavior. I give you this. They could have saved themselves and left us to die. They didn't. They could have retreated when the odds became impossible. They didn't. They stood between us and death, knowing they might not survive. That is who they are. Judge them by their actions, not your fears." The chamber was silent. Finally, Velith spoke again. "The Council will vote on a proposal. We wish to create an emergency response division within the Coalition military structure. Earth would be its primary contributor. When disasters strike, when people need help in situations too dangerous for normal forces, humans would respond." Tejo nodded slowly. "Earth accepts, on one condition. We don't just respond to Coalition members. If anyone anywhere needs help, we go. No politics, no favoritism. Just people helping people." There was debate, of course. Some species objected, others worried about the precedent. But in the end, the vote was nearly unanimous. Earth would become the Coalition's first responders. The Deathworlders would be the ones who went when no one else could. 6 months later, the galaxy had changed. Human rapid response teams had deployed to 14 different crisis situations. They pulled miners from collapsed tunnels on worlds with crushing gravity. They fought pirates threatening peaceful trade routes. They delivered medicine to plague-stricken colonies through blockades nobody else would risk. Each mission added to the growing legend. Humans, the species everyone had feared and avoided, were becoming the most trusted name in the galaxy. When you were in trouble, when things seemed hopeless, you called for humans. They would come. They always came. On Elisara, the rebuilding was almost complete. The Taurians had returned to their world with human engineers helping them reconstruct. In the center of Crystal Spring, where the final stand had taken place, stood a monument. 6 crystal statues, each one 3 meters tall, depicting the humans who had saved them. The inscription was simple, written in 100 languages. They were strangers. We could offer nothing in return. Yet they came. They bled. They stood. This is humanity. Back on Earth, in the Sol Command Center, Commander Haiwan stood before a massive star map. It showed the entire Coalition space. Red lights marked crisis situations. There were dozens of them. Some were small, just a few people needing rescue. Others were large-scale disasters. All of them were calls for help. Dae-Sung stood beside her, studying the map. 14 active missions, 23 more requesting assistance. Commander, we can't possibly respond to all of them. Haiwan smiled. It was a tired smile, but genuine. You're right. We can't. But we have to try anyway. That's what humans do. The rest of the team had gathered in the command center. Hyunwoo was reviewing equipment manifests. Yuna was training new recruits in alien first aid. Jiwoo was coordinating communications with a dozen different species. Woojin, no longer the youngest member now that they had expanded, was teaching others his demolition techniques. They had all been offered promotions, desk jobs, easier assignments. They had all refused. This work, this constant rush from crisis to crisis, was exhausting and dangerous. But it mattered. It saved lives. And that was enough. An alert chimed. Another distress call. This one from a mining colony in the Outer Rim. Cave-in. 300 workers trapped. Local authorities requesting immediate assistance. That's 2 systems away, Dae-sung noted. We could be there in 6 hours. Then let's not waste time, Hae-won said. She activated the fleet-wide communication system. All teams prepare for deployment. We have people who need us. Around the command center, alarms began to sound. Ships powered up their engines. Soldiers grabbed their gear. Medics checked their supplies. It was organized chaos, but beneath it all was purpose, direction, meaning. Young Woo Jin passed by, now a sergeant himself, leading a squad of new recruits. He paused by Hae-won. "Commander, the new kids are nervous. First real mission." "Tell them what I told you on Elisara," Hae-won said. "Being scared doesn't matter when people need help." Woo Jin grinned and nodded. He repeated those words to his squad, who straightened up and headed for their transport with new determination. Outside, the transport ships lifted off one by one, climbing into Earth's blue sky. They would scatter across the galaxy, each one heading towards someone in trouble. Some missions would be easy. Others would be impossibly hard. Some of them wouldn't come back. But they would all go, because that's what humans did. Ambassador Tai-ho watched the ships depart from his office window. He received daily complaints from council members. Humans were too aggressive, too willing to take risks, too independent. They didn't follow protocols. He smiled at each complaint and gave the same response. They save lives. Everything else is secondary. The truth was, the galaxy was changing because of humans. Other species were starting to volunteer for the Emergency Response Division. Inspired by human courage, they were finding their own. The Vren had contributed medical specialists. The Axians were providing support ships. Even species that had never considered military service were signing up to help. Humans hadn't conquered the galaxy. They had done something more powerful. They had given it hope. On the star map in Seoul, new lights appeared. Green ones marking successful missions. Red ones marking new calls for help. The map was always changing, always updating. There would always be someone who needed help. Always another crisis, another disaster, another group of people facing impossible odds. And there would always be humans willing to answer. Hae-won stood before the map, her team around her, and she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Pride. Not in herself, but in her species. In humanity. They had come from a world that tried to kill them, learned to survive against impossible odds, and then decided to use that strength to help others. "Commander," Dae-sung said quietly, "you know we can't save everyone, right? No matter how hard we try." "I know," Hae-won replied, "but we can save someone, and someone is worth everything." The lights on the map continued to pulse, red for danger, green for hope, and everywhere, spreading slowly but steadily, blue lights marking human response teams. They were scattered across the galaxy now, from the core worlds to the outer rim. Wherever they went, they brought the same message. Help is coming. Hold on. Humans are on the way. The story that had begun with a desperate call from Elisara had become something bigger. It had become a promise. A guarantee that in this vast, dangerous galaxy, you were never truly alone. If you needed help, someone would answer. And more often than not, that someone would be human. They sent out a call for aid, and Earth's Deathworlders answered. They always would.